will do a favor on Russia, and they will ask Germany that you will have to surrender all those territories to Russia which you have previously annexed, okay, during the course of First World War. So Russia will get back its territories. Italy's opinion was not given that much importance. Now there are three countries, okay, their opinion will be very much prominent. One country is US. US is represented by Woodrow Wilson. The second country is Britain. Britain is represented by Lloyd George. And the third country is France. And France is represented by, okay, Clemenceau. Okay. So these are big three, right? Basically, big four minus one. Big four में Italy भी होगा, and minus one means, okay, we have just not given that much importance to the opinions of Italy. Now we need to understand that what was the outlook of this country US, what was the outlook of Woodrow Wilson, okay, what was the outlook of Britain, what was the outlook of France. Okay, first we need to understand this outlook, then we will discuss that what are the different provisions in the Treaty of, okay, Versailles that was signed with Germany, and then we will be able to understand that why do we say that the seeds of Second World War, okay, were present in the provisions of Paris Peace Treaty. Okay, so we are going to discuss in detail, okay, this entire context. Now do you understand? Clear? Okay, so now we are going to discuss. I hope you understand the entire context now. So whatever you read, just try to develop this entire development in the form of a story. So when you will make story, unnecessary facts will be removed, okay, and it will become easier for you, okay, to retain the things. Now we are going to discuss the outlook of these three different nations, that is big three. So here we will discuss the outlook of big three. So US, the second is France, and the third is Britain. Okay, US, France, and Britain. So here we are going to discuss the outlook of US. Okay, what's the outlook of US? So देखो, US, okay, was represented by Woodrow Wilson. Here the suggestions are very much important. US is represented by Woodrow Wilson, and we all know that on what conditions US entered in the First World War. किस condition में आया था? US entered here to protect the rights of the minority, okay, for democracy, especially to emphasize on the idea of right of self-determination. Okay, US did not enter to support the colonial Britain. So he will ask that I will help you, but you will have to give relaxation to the people in the colonies. Okay, that means US want what? US Woodrow Wilson here will advocate for a what? He will advocate for, read this, future peace and stability in the world. Future peace and stability. Okay, he will advocate to establish future peace and stability in the world. He will advocate here to establish future peace and stability in the world. And how it will be established? So he says that, okay, on the basis of justice and neutrality, on the basis of justice and neutrality, on the basis of justice and neutrality, we will, okay, design the provisions of Paris Peace Treaty. Okay, on the basis of justice and neutrality. Okay, it means US will present no idea of taking revenge. US does not have any intention. US does not have any intention, okay, to take revenge. US does not have any intention to take revenge from any other country. Any country. US does not have any intention to take revenge on any country. US understands it well that the war started on the question of ethnic minorities. सर्बिया वाला इशू बताया था ना, So what he will say, what it will say, US will say that we must grant the right to self determination. Okay, that is the point of US. That US read this, US understands it well, that the war was sparked, okay, on the question of war was sparked on the question of ethnic and cultural minorities. Ethnic and cultural minorities. The war here is sparked on the question of ethnic and cultural minority. Example, Serbs' identity. We already have discussed it. It started on the question of ethnic identity and cultural identity. For example, Serb identity war इसीलिए start हुआ था, right? So US will demand that, okay, the right to self determination must be granted. The right to self determination must be granted. Okay, ethnic and cultural minorities, ethnic and cultural minorities, okay, must be given, ethnic and cultural minorities must be given, okay, their valid rights, must be given their valid rights. It means their valid demands should be acknowledged. It means that their valid demands should be acknowledged. The valid demand should be acknowledged. Clear? Valid demand of ethnic and cultural minorities should be acknowledged. Now tell me one thing. When you will acknowledge the demand of these minorities, will the new nations be formed? Yes. Will the territories of the previous nations will be altered? Yes. This was the syllabus given in UPSC. New nations, national boundaries. Okay, so this all will happen. So this is the point. Now, what is the approach of US? Imperialistic or anti-imperialistic? Colonial approach or anti-colonial approach? So the answer is anti-imperialist and anti-colonial outlook. So write this point also. Anti-imperialist, anti-imperialist and anti-colonial outlook. Anti-imperialist and anti-colonial outlook. And what US will demand? US will demand that the right to self-determination of the people living in colonies must be granted. Okay, this is also one demand, that the right to self-determination of the people who are living in colonies, this right also must be granted. Right to self-determination for the people who are living in colonies, it also must be granted, right? Colonies में रहने वाले लोगों के right to self-determination, it should also be granted. This is the demand. Okay, will it have impact on the ongoing freedom movements in the colonies? Yes. Example is India, we all know. So you can write here that it had significant impact. It had significant impact. It had significant impact on ongoing freedom movements, ongoing freedom movements in the colonies. It will have significant impact on ongoing movements in the colonies. Okay, so can we say that US is trying to promote democratic ethos instead of territorial greeds? Yes, we can say this. So write this. US tried to promote democratic ethos. US tried to promote democratic ethos instead of territorial gains and greed. Instead of territorial gains and greeds, it's trying to promote and protect democratic ethos instead of territorial gains. Clear? Is it clear? Now, US will also suggest that we must have an international body, and that international body, okay, will be helpful in solving the disputes. Okay, it will just do what? Okay, it will help in the arbitration of the disputes. Okay, so that international order is very much important. So write this: us suggested for the us suggested for the formation of an international body. US also suggested for the formation of an international body or organization, for the formation of an international body or organization in the name of League of Nations. This is also suggestion of US. US also suggested for the formation of an international body or organization in the form of League of Nations, which will come into existence on 10th January 1920. Okay, it will come into existence on 20th January 1920. So you can remember 1920 only. Both have. So January 1920 you can remember. Okay, League of Nations. And this organization is for what? So this was an organization for international cooperation. League of Nations was what? An organization for international cooperation. League of Nations was an organization for international cooperation. This is League of Nations. Okay, so what is the basic idea? Basic idea is to ensure security of all. Write this: the basic idea was to ensure security of all. The basic idea was to ensure security of all, that is collective security. Collective security. What is the basic idea? That this body will do what? This body will promote collective security. Collective security. Okay. How collective security will come? First World War had challenged what? Security of all. Okay. Got it? First World War had challenged security of all. Here we are talking about collective security. Once you will be able to prevent war, once you will be able to avoid war, so you can promote what? Collective security. And this can be done by which method? So by arbitration. Arbitration. Okay, madhyasthata. And who will do this arbitration? Third party. For example, if there is any dispute between me and Akansha, so a third party will, okay, do arbitration. And which is this third party? League of Nations. Clear? So the task is what? Arbitration. And what was the most important need of the time? To avoid secret diplomacy and to promote open diplomacy, because secret diplomacy had caused great challenges. So here the third important point was also that the objective was to promote open diplomacy. यहाँ पे objective क्या था? Open diplomacy को promote करना, right? And tell me one thing. In First World War, okay, we see that this was a great war. Great war in the sense that it had lot of impact, intensity, casualties. Okay, many nations were involved. So do you think that if, okay, we will be able to reduce arms race or reduction in armaments will also be helpful in maintaining peace? Yes. So this was also the objective, that, right, this reduction of armaments, the reduction of armaments, ये भी करना था, reduction of armaments. This was also to be done. And finally, the most important point here is that, right, this to promote social and economic cooperation between different nations. This was also an important to promote social and economic cooperation, to promote social and economic cooperation between different nations. This was also one idea, to promote social and economic cooperation between different nations. Okay, open diplomacy have written. Now this the question is the same. The objective was, okay, to bring what? Peace. Okay, to establish long term peace and stability in Europe. तो कैसे होगा? How it will be done? Do you think that League of Nations will be helpful to some extent? Yes, it will be helpful. So the basic objective of all is to establish, I have already discussed it, to establish future peace and stability in the world. Future peace and stability in the world. But tell me one thing, that League of Nations was successful in its objective or not? Why? Because Second World War, outbreak of Second World War. आपका काम था कि दोबारा वॉर ना हो, वैसा destructive war ना हो. But it happened. It means it failed in its objective. Clear? So write this point. But League of Nations failed in its objective. But League of Nations failed in its objective, right? Because Second World War started. League of Nations failed in its objectives because Second World War started in 1939. It means League of Nations failed in its purpose. Second World War started in 1939. League of Nations failed in its purpose. The idea is very simple and clear. Now, when we'll discuss what are the important events between these two world wars, we will discuss that how League of Nations failed. But one thing we must know, that the country which suggested to form League of Nations itself was not a part of League of Nations. This is also one of the reason for the failure. Okay, so you can write this. This is a very important point. Write this. Okay, US suggested to form League of Nations, but US itself was not a part of it. US suggested to form League of Nations, but US itself was not a part of League of Nations. Okay, US itself suggested for the formation of League of Nations, but US itself was not a part of it. Okay, and write this. This is one of the reasons for the failure of League of Nations. Other reasons we'll discuss later, right? This is one of the reason for the failure of League of Nations. One of the reason for the failure of League of Nations. Other reasons we'll discuss later. This is one of the reason for the failure of League of Nations. Other reasons we'll discuss later. Now these suggestions are good or not? Woodrow Wilson को Nobel Peace Prize मिलना चाहिए कि नहीं? Yes. So basically I have discussed important points out of 14 points suggested by Wilson. ठीक है ना? So all these suggestions, there are some other suggestions as well. I have discussed the essence of the topic. Okay, so the suggestions of Woodrow Wilson during Paris Peace Conference were codified into how many points? 14 points. And Woodrow Wilson got Nobel Peace Prize for these 14 points. These are called Wilson's 14 points formula. Okay, so write this point. This all is called Wilson's 14 point formula. इन सब को हम क्या कहते हैं? This all is called Wilson's 14 point formula. It means all suggestions of Woodrow Wilson, were codified into 14 points. Sorry, 12 बोला था क्या मैंने? 14 points होगा. Were codified into 14 points, and they are known as 14 points formula. This is also very popularly known as Wilson's 14 point formula, and this is very important, okay, for the establishment of peace and order in the world. And for this Wilson got Nobel Peace Prize. Wilson got Nobel Peace Prize. और इंडिया में एक लोग थे जो कॉपी करने में एक्सपर्ट थे, नाम था मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना. When I will discuss modern India, I will discuss Jinnah also gave Jinnah's 14 point formula in the year 1929, but बेचारे को कोई नोबेल नहीं मिला. ठीक है, उनके 14 point formula को किसी ने एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया, right? So that is also Jinnah's 14 point formula. Okay, you will discuss it. Now one thing, okay, League of Nations will later be replaced by which international body or organization? Very good. Okay, so we'll discuss that. Okay, now let's have recap of some points, then I will discuss the other countries issue. And here we don't need to write anything. Basically what I am going to discuss with you, okay, US in First World War. Okay, आप देख पा रहे हो इमेज को? Okay, now we don't have to read this entire content because this is the content for the optional. So I will just highlight some important points here. ठीक है, जिसको देखना है लिखना नहीं है, बस in order to learn it better I will highlight some important points here. ठीक है ना? देखो क्या है, this is what we are discussing here.